Good evening and welcome to the final forum we are doing here at Cayuga Community College, produced by the college and the telecom department for the mayor of Auburn. I'm your moderator, Guy Cosentino. On November 7th, voters will get to go to the polls to vote for a new mayor for the city of Auburn. Mayor Michael D. Quill decided not to seek a fifth term back in the fall of last year. He will finish his 16th year in office on January 1st. And as a result, we have an open seat for mayor for the first time in 2 decades. With us in the studio are the 2 candidates running for mayor this year. We want to welcome them and thank them for participating today. They're in the order of their opening statements. We flipped a coin at the beginning. It's Timothy C. Lattimore, who's on the Republican and Conservative lines, and Jimmy Giannatino, who's on the Democratic Working Families Party and Auburn Party line, which is an independent line. Gentlemen, welcome to the studios. We're delighted to have you here to talk to the voters over the next hour. And they will be asked questions by Mr. Harding from The Citizen. Robert Harding is the political reporter for The Citizen, and he'll be asking questions after their opening statements. As the candidates know, we have a timekeeper in our studio, Nate, who is a student here at Cayuga. He'll be holding up a sign when they're about a minute and a half into their statements, and then hold up a red sign to tell them to finish up at that point. But we'll start with our opening statements. Mr. Lattimore, you have 2 minutes. Welcome.
Well, welcome. Thank you, Mayor, former mayor. I'm a former mayor. I'm Tim Lattimore, and I was on the city planning and the county planning board for 10 years. I was a city councilor. I was a mayor. I was a legislator for 12 years. Presently, I'm a commissioner of civil service for the county. I come from a family of 12, and I raised 4 kids here. They're all pretty successful. And I just want to say that Auburn's been very good to me, and I think that Auburn's going in the wrong direction. That's why I stepped into this race. You know, when did losing become normal for Auburn? You know, a wave of property crime was okay. It's okay that the Auburn PD has less sworn officers now than it had in 2008. When did it sign off on a 74% high school graduation rate? When did we accept Auburn at the bottom of other New York cities in peer review, National Business Development Survey? These things disturb me. And when we have, you know, our schools, you know, crime is high, you know, taxes are up, housing, you know, we have a quality of housing problem, you know, slumlords. And our water quality, according to the mayor, he sent out a nice letter to the governor saying that we're like Flint, Michigan. Very disturbing. I don't know anybody who would want to come to this neighborhood. So hopefully when I'm mayor, we can turn this city around. I thought that every governmental body that I've been with, I've left it in better shape than when I found it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. We'll now hear from Councilor Giannatino. You have 2 minutes as well, and as I said, you're on the Democratic Working Families Party line and the Auburn Independent line. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to former Mayor Cosentino, Mr. Harding, and the entire CCC Telecom team for hosting today's debate. My name is Jimmy Giannatino, and I am a candidate for mayor. I was born and raised in Auburn, and at the age of 17, I made the decision to serve our country in the United States Air Force. I was stationed throughout the country, and while I enjoyed each duty assignment for the new opportunities offered and friends made, at the end of my enlistment, I decided to return home to Auburn. Upon returning, I was fortunate enough to start a career with Medent, a locally owned family-run company located in downtown Auburn. 25 years later, I have risen through the ranks and am now the operations manager. I took advantage of the GI Bill and completed my master's degree in history. From 2008 until 2016, I was an adjunct professor of American history at Columbia College. Part of the reason I decided to return to Auburn was that I wanted my children to have the same quality upbringing that Auburn offered me. My son Andrew is a graduate of SUNY Oneonta and recently started his career as an audio engineer. My daughter Gracie is a junior at the University of Rochester, majoring in environmental science, and is a member of the women's lacrosse team. In 2015, I decided to run for city council because I wanted to continue the Giannatino family tradition of service, and I wanted to give back to the city that has given so much to me. I was fortunate enough to earn the trust of the electorate, and after being elected, I went straight to work for the people of Auburn, and it has been full speed ahead ever since. 4 years later, Auburnians recognized my hard work and dedication and rewarded me with a second term. I am proud of my service to the people of Auburn and our undeniable record of progress. Despite this progress, I know that challenges still remain and exciting opportunities are certainly in front of us. I believe that my combined experience as a veteran, an educator, a manager in private business, a twice-elected city councilor, a parent, and a property owner make me the best candidate to address these challenges and embrace these opportunities. I look forward to a healthy and productive discussion of the issues important to all Auburnians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giannantino. We'll now have Mr. Harding ask you questions. He can ask of either of you or both of you. If it's for both of you, we'll rotate back and forth, as we've been doing for the last several forums. If it's for both of you, the first question will go to Mr. Giannantino and then back and forth. You do have a minute responses if you want, if you just single me, and I will make sure that we hear from you again, but your opponent will also get a time, and I will make the determination of how many rounds we go on that. Mr. Harding, welcome back for this final mayoral forum.
Thanks, Guy. Both of you in interviews and in public comments have mentioned that protecting the drinking water is a top priority. So just wanted to give the viewers, the voters at home, a chance to hear from you as to what your plans would be, if elected mayor, to protect the city's drinking water supply.
Mr. Giannantino, you're up first. You have 2 minutes.
Sure, thank you. As everybody is aware, in 2016 we were faced with a very serious drinking water crisis when Owasco Lake experienced harmful algal blooms. The council at that time, including myself, along with other elected officials throughout the county, sprang to action. We lobbied then Governor Andrew Cuomo for two things. First, a stopgap measure to protect our drinking water so that we could continue to provide safe drinking water. He came through with that, and we've been able to provide clean, safe drinking water. The second, it was a larger ask, and that was the long-term protection and health of Owasco Lake. And that should come in the form of a total maximum daily load. Unfortunately, that has not happened. We have lobbied tirelessly. We have been rebuked by the state on that topic. However, we recently found a letter from the EPA to the state of New York saying that we have been correct all along and that the total maximum daily load is required for Owasco Lake. That is a pollution budget. It will dictate how much pollution that lake can take. We will identify all the sources of that pollution. We will continue to fight for that because it is what is required by law under the Clean Water Act, and the state is abdicating their responsibilities. We will continue to lobby for increased rules and regulations for the state or for Owasco Lake. That was a 3-year process that we underwent starting in 2016. We sent those to the state. It took 3 years for them to reply to us. And unfortunately, what they did was dismantle our rules and regulations. The city of Auburn and the town of Owasco have collectively retained a law firm by the name of Earth Justice, and we are pursuing legal action at this time to require the state to do what is right and what is required under federal law. We will continue those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Lattimore, on this issue of what you will do to protect the drinking water.
Well, let me just say, if years ago, before I was even a councilor, I was up on Sam Adams Lane up on the lake, and I had indicated that if the lake was oil, we'd have a fence around it with guards. And it's more important than oil to people. We should protect the lake. The rules and regs that the city has is enough to protect it. From those days on Sam Adams Lane, when I was with the county, worked with Bruce Natalie, we put in the Owasco Flats that helped some of the runoff. I've always said that we need to slow down the speed of the water. We need dams in some of the major tributaries. We need holding ponds to take some of that nutrient out of the lake. This particular council and mayor have not protected the lake. Their letter to the governor and stripping the rules and regs that were actually in there to protect the lake. Hopefully, when I'm mayor, we're gonna call on our federal people and make sure that we get this thing done. I mean, you've got to protect the water. Nobody's going to move from Micron or anywhere else into this vicinity with bad water. I mean, I was in the shower at the Y today and it came out and my eyes were red. We got too many chemicals in the water. The ladies in the office, I work at the Aversa Insurance office, say, when they shampoo their hair, it's coming out different than it has before. I fought the fluoride issue back when I was mayor. They wanted to put fluoride in the water. I said no. I'm protecting the drinking water for the 42,000 people that drink it.
Councilor, you'll have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to address what my opponent said about this mayor and council not adequately addressing the drinking water issue. Let's be clear. This issue came to light in 2016. I was first elected in 2015. Was sworn in on January 1st, 2016. Since that day, I've been fighting for this lake. Mr. Lattimore has been involved in local politics since 1986. I was in the 7th grade the first time he ran. He's been on city council, he's been mayor, he's been a county legislator for 12 years. He is complicit in this. He's done nothing to protect this lake. So I take exception to the fact that he's blaming us for this. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute.
Yes, as I indicated long before I was even elected, I was up saying that we should have, before they even built the jail at the end of the lake, the prison, that we should have down the right-of-way that the railroad used to run on the west side of the lake, we should have a line to take the sewage that comes out of Moravia and pipe that down to Auburn so that nothing enters our drinking water. So I've sounded the alert that, you know, nothing is to go in our water except rain.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. Mr. Giannatino, you'll get another minute, as will Mayor Lattimore, and we'll go back and forth.
Understood, thank you. Total maximum daily load, that is pollution budget for Owasco Lake. That will identify what can and cannot go into that lake. That is what is required by law. That is what we are going to continue to fight for. Mr. Lattimore said he's been saying. He's been saying for 37 years. 1986 was the first time he ran for office. The difference between him and I, he says, I do. My track record on Owasco Lake it speaks for itself, and I'm proud of it. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute, and then we're going to move back to Mr. Harding because we'd like to include him in the discussion as well.
Well, the quality of the water has gone down, and hopefully we can put somebody in elected office who can bring resources to this lake. I've been saying to the board that was formed to look at the rules and regs. The only thing we need to pass is the New York City's drinking water rules and regulations. We don't have to come up with another formula that the governor's not going to like. So, Councilor or Congressional Lady Tenney and I, we both disagree with the governor's stance on this, and we'll fight her.
Mr. Harding.
You know, follow up on this issue with Owasco Lake. Mr. Giannatino, you mentioned it earlier regarding the state's refusal to adopt the Owasco Lake watershed regulation updates. But if you're elected mayor, and if the state, and this question for both of you, if you're in this position, if the state refuses to adopt those protections and any sort of legal challenge isn't successful, what should the city do after that to ensure that the drinking water is safe for its residents and for the users in neighboring towns?
Mr. Lattimore, you have 2 minutes on this.
Well, number one, I've indicated that there's billions of gallons of water that Moravia pumps into the drinking water. Let's get a sewer plan down the east side or the west side of the lake and pick up all the houses that actually have, maybe bad septics or whatever, and get the material off the lake. Now, my opponent says that I haven't done anything. I think that the Owasco Flats project was a pretty good start, and hopefully we can continue that with slowing down the speed of the water. I mean, every rooftop or driveway that goes into the watershed, speeds the water up. We need a green belt around the lake. I've said it for years. We should be buying property in order to have holding ponds and dams in our tributaries. Every stream bank, every mile of stream bank brings in 10 tons of soil a year, which is nutrient. We got to slow the water down.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. Councilor?
Thank you. Mr. Harding, I believe the question was surrounding rules and regulations.
Yes.
Thank you, that's what I thought. We will continue to advocate for the rules and regulations that we passed. It was a collaborative effort between the City of Auburn, Cuyahoga County, and the municipalities that surround the lake. It also included members of agriculture and all the stakeholders. There was compromise in those rules and regulations. We sent them to the state, and they have dismantled them. We will continue to fight for rules and regulations, and we will use our law firm that we have retained. On the topic of federal officials, Congresswoman Claudia Tenney has actually endorsed our request for total maximum daily load. We have been in contact with her office. We have been in contact with Senator Schumer's office. We've been in contact with Senator Gillibrand's office. We will continue to push the state to do what is required under the law. In addition, we will continue to fight for the total maximum daily load. The rules and regulations that they sent back to us are less effective than what we have right now. Mr. Lattimore seems to think that we could just pick whatever rules and regulations we want, that we could use the rules and regulations that New York City has. That's not what the process was. We followed the process that state laid out for us, and we will continue to advocate on behalf of Owasco Lake. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have one more minute.
Instead of protecting the lake, we've got to now rescue the lake. Now, one of the engineers that worked with me in the city was Mike O'Neill. You'll see Mike O'Neill on an ad or Tim Talk that we had the other day, and he will explain exactly what's happening to the lake. He is very knowledgeable. I had Lon Ficano talking about the ambulance service the other day. Mike knows everything about the lake. I'm going to bring people who actually know something to the table instead of politicians and actually come up with an answer to these things.
You'll have 1 minute.
Thank you. I think that goes along with the collective effort that we've had with the town of Owasco and the other municipalities surrounding the lake in forming the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council, creating the Owasco Lake Watershed Inspection Program. Those are the experts. They're out there doing the hard work that needs to be done to protect the lake. These people that Mr. Lattimore's talking about, I'm not sure what Lon Ficano has to do with water quality and protecting the lake, but we're going to continue on the path that we're on. We're going to fight for what's legally required by law under the Clean Water Act. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Harding.
Wanted to go back to what both of you said in your opening statements. Mr. Lattimore, you said Auburn is losing, and Mr. Genatino, you mentioned that the city's made progress, but there's some challenges that remain. So kind of individual questions for you. Mr. Lattimore, if Auburn is losing, why are you the right person to make it win again? And Mr. Genatino, with those challenges, what are they, and what would you do to address those if you're elected mayor?
Okay. We'll start with Mr. Lattimore. You'll have 2 minutes on this, and Mr. Genatino will have 2 minutes, and then I'll decide whether we're going to go back and forth on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as Mr. Genatino indicates, I do know a lot of people up and down the thruway that I can call on. I do know how to pick the phone up, and years ago, before I was even elected mayor, talked to Advanced Micro Devices. We had Sue Snyder, who went to Lansing and ended up at Cornell, come and look at where the milk plant site is. And I think that economic development will prosper a lot more under my administration than Mr. Genatino's. I mean, I've proven that your speaker today is Mr. Cosentino. He knows that we got on a plane and went down to Dallas and brought back Snyder General, which is now Tessie in our industrial site. So I'm not afraid to pick the phone up and do whatever has to be done in order for Auburn to progress. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the question to you, Mr. Genatino, if I can just repeat it, is there are challenges ahead. How do you expect to face them?
Yeah, so I will say this. Auburn, like every community across this country, faces serious challenges. There's an addiction crisis across this country, not just in Auburn, the likes of which this country has never seen. There is a homelessness crisis across the entire country. We will continue the efforts that we have collectively brought together to address these issues. In terms of addiction, the city of Auburn invested $900,000 in Nick's Ride. They have been a tremendous asset and partner in helping people who are suffering with addiction in this community. We're currently working with the county to address the issue of homelessness. Let's be clear, that issue is a county issue, but we believe we're good partners, and we're trying to work with them to address that. Those efforts will continue. I believe there's serious opportunity in front of us. There has been tremendous progress in the last 8 to 10 years in Auburn. There has been private and public investment over the last decade, the likes of which we've never seen. I expect that to continue and only get better with Micron coming to Onondaga County. I believe that Micron presents generational change, not only to Central New York, but the state of New York as a whole. And we will continue to work diligently to embrace every opportunity that presents to us. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute.
My opponent indicates that Micron. All you got to do is Google this area, and you're going to find out that the taxes are too high. The quality of life is not the best. The graduation rate is low. The crime is high. I don't know whether Micron people want to come here. They're going to go to where graduation rates are good in Union Springs, in Weedsport, Skinny Atlas. I mean, all these factors, enter into where you want to buy a house. Right now, we're looking bad. Under the 16 years that Quill and yourself have been in.
Mr. Genatino, did you
Yeah, I'd
have
like
1
to-
minute, and then we'll move back to
Sure.
Mr.
I'd like to
Hart.
address several things that my opponent just said. He proclaims to be the hero of rescuing Snyder General. Let's be clear, Snyder General is not here anymore. He said that led to Tessie. That didn't lead to Tessie. Tessie actually came to Auburn while I was in office in this current administration. He talks about crime. He keeps telling everybody that crime is out of control. The police chief, who happens to be the expert on this issue, not Mr. Lattimore, recently reported at City Council that both violent crime and property crime are half what they were 15 years ago, the final year that Mr. Lattimore was mayor. So again, another false narrative that he's spinning throughout this community. And it's really unfortunate. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, I'll give you another minute.
Well, thank you very much. I happen to work in the insurance business, and whatever crime doesn't get reported to the police department, which would indicate a higher crime rate, gets reported to our insurance office. And we pay claims for people, porch pirates and the rest of the crime that goes on. We see it every day. So what's reported and what actually is happening in the streets are two different things, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Genatino, 1 minute on this.
And one more issue that I'd like to address that my opponent brought up, and he mentioned high taxes. Again, let's be clear, he was a county legislator for 12 years, so if taxes are high, he's got something to do with that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Harding.
Thank you. In early
Excuse me just for a second.
Yeah.
So if this is for both candidates,
Yes.
we're going back and forth. I believe Mr. Genatino's up first.
Okay. In early October, the former Bombardier plant was listed for sale. It's a major development for a site that has been vacant for 17 years. Based on this, how do you think the property should be used in the future, and how can city government play a role in attracting a major employer to that space?
Counselor?
Yeah, so great news a couple weeks ago when Alstom announced that the former Bombardier site was for sale. It's the last tract of industrial land in the city of Auburn. It's 15 acres. It presents a golden opportunity for us with Micron coming to Onondaga County. Alstom has been a good partner. Upon buying that property, Mayor Mike Quill reached out to them, introduced himself, and asked them to come to Auburn, and they did. And they took us on a tour of the property. They were very clear with us. They do not plan to expand into that site. What they would like to do is sell it and get it into some type of reuse. I would like it to be of the industrial type. As I said, this is the last tract of industrial land in the city. I believe that it can bring good paying jobs here. It can revitalize that end of town. I said to the gentleman from Alstom, this is personal for a lot of us. My grandfather and both his brothers lived in that neighborhood. They walked to work every day when it was Elko. I'm super excited about this. On top of them being willing to redevelop it, we were able to secure an $8.5 million Restore New York grant. That will help with the redevelopment of that site. The city is working with CETA and the current owner to actively market it. And I'm confident that within the next couple of years, we'll get some good news there. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Mr. Lattimore, on the use or reuse of Bombardier.
Stop.
Right here and not for the next question. Guy,
Yes.
thank you for taking a pause. Is next up Mr. Lattimore's response or another question for Mr. Hart?
Mr. Lattimore's response.
Okay, can you hold right there? Can you
Sure.
pause right there? We haven't.
Do you want me to say what I was going to say, or just direct
Yes,
Mr.
you would
Leonard?
need to start with what it is you were going to say. I have a camera offline right now.
Okay.
So if you can pause just
Sure.
one moment.
Okay. Technology is my friend on this campus, but
What was that last question?
I'm Bombardier.
Why don't you start the last question over again?
You want me to repeat
It
it?
was flickering crazy and the thing.
If you're fine starting over again, then we'll have
So
Mr.
Mike,
Yep.
we're good on that camera.
Okay. Just point. Thank you, Counselor. And I will now turn to Mr. Lattimore on the use or reuse of the Bombardier plant.
Well, before that blue building was Bombardier, it was Elko. Now, Elko had a sister plant down in Schenectady. My opponent indicates that they got $8 million for cleanup. I think I'm a better negotiator than what's presently on the council. That sister plant in Schenectady, from our senator, who was nice enough to give Schenectady, the mayor down there, gave him $50 million. So we asked for something lower than what we probably should have gotten. So sometimes knowing history is a good thing, and I know that a little bit of history. I had, I don't know whether anybody's been to Delago, but I had that whole thing cleaned up and utilized for Delago. It was $1 billion hotel, restaurant, gaming situation. And, you know, some of the councilors on the board didn't think gambling was okay. I mean, even though the state of New York likes it, lottery, people play it all the time, and Delago went 10 miles down the road. If it was in Auburn, it was 1,200 union jobs and $8 million in property taxes. The city could use $8 million.
Thank you. Mr. Genatino, you have a minute to respond.
Thank you, Guy. There's a couple things I want to clear up that my opponent just said. He said he'd get more money for the Bombardier site. He's a better negotiator. The actual maximum amount we could have received was $10 million. We received $8.5 million of that $10 million. He says he's a better negotiator. I would disagree. When he was mayor, he signed the city of Auburn up for a failed energy project. If he was a good negotiator, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. That project to date, actually not to date, but through the life of that project until it's paid off, will cost the taxpayers of this city $18 million. So he's right. We could use that $8 million from Delago to clean up his mess. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute.
My opponent just took a shot at an energy project that I didn't sign. the present mayor that he works for signed it. It's not my project. I've proven that in other council races prior to this. But let me tell you, the gen set that was there could have been leased, but you won't even talk to the developer who wants to lease it. That would have taken $300,000 off your indebtedness. You won't even talk to the people. I can't even get the keys to go show a guy who wanted to build drones at the Elko plant because your mayor won't give me the keys.
Mr. Genatino will have 1 minute.
Thank you. So we don't have the keys to Bombardier. It's a privately owned building. If Mr. Lattimore has a legitimate buyer to go into that facility, then he should work through CETA and call the owners of Bombardier. We don't have the keys to that building. And let's be clear, he was mayor when the cogen project took root. That's a fact. $18 million that is going to cost the taxpayers of the city over the life of that project.
Over here.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute.
My counselor, I've proven time and time again, I never signed any agreement for that project. You know that. I dropped off the copy to every one of you counselors to show you who signed the contract. Your present mayor, Mr. Quill, signed the contract. And you won't even talk to somebody who wants to help take the load off that project.
Mr. Genatino, you'll have 1 minute.
Mr. Lattimore, you are correct. I don't want to talk to anybody who was involved with that project. It is almost bankrupt this city.
So you haven't talked to him?
Are there rules here, Mr. Hardy? Mr.
No.
Cosentino?
We're going to let Mr. Genatino finish his
Yes,
comment,
sure,
and you can
of
have
course.
1 minute after that, and then we're going to move
Sure.
on.
Thank you. His fingerprints are all over this. I have talked to members of city staff who advised him when he was mayor to run from this, to not get involved in it. He ignored them, him and city manager Mark Palish at the time. This is his fault.
Mr. Lattimore, you're going to have 1 minute, and then I'm going to tell viewers what they're watching.
Well, Mr. Genatino wants to just give you half the story. That's the problem. The other half of the story was a digester. We have a problem at the sewage department where we have to haul our sludge to another dump because, we don't have one. You're going to spend millions of dollars on a process down at they handle the sludge. We could have used the airspace that he used up at the dump, which would have saved us millions of dollars. It closed early because he used construction debris instead of using municipal waste. So, don't tell me who's wasting money at the city. You guys are wasting money. You just went in an ambulance system that's forcing everybody out of the business, and it's costing you $7 million more when it cost you $0. You want to talk about money? Let's talk.
So, Mr. Genatino, because 2 new subjects got entered into, if you want 1 minute, you have it, and then Mr. Lattimore will have 1 minute.
No, I'll pass for the next question, please. Thank you.
So we just want to let viewers know you are watching the 2023 Mayoral Forum for the City of Auburn Mayor. This is for an open seat because Mayor Michael D. Quill has decided not to seek re-election after four terms. I'm Guy Cosentino, the moderator. We have in the studio with us Robert Harding, the political reporter for The Citizen, who is asking questions of both Tim Lattimore, who is on the Republican and Conservative lines, and Jimmy Genatino, who is a member of City Council currently and is on the Democratic Working Families Party and Auburn Independent line. Mr. Harding.
I received this question before the forum tonight. Figured we'd ease into this second half with a little lighter fare. We had some snow here yesterday, and that creates conditions where the sidewalks might not be safe for everybody from kids walking to school to older folks going out for a walk in the morning. Should the city pursue some sort of citywide de-icing program to make these sidewalks safer, for pathways to downtown or to places like schools?
Mr. Lattimore, you're up. 2 minutes on this issue of school safety and sidewalks and snow.
Well, let me just indicate that at the county, I did work with Ms. McMahon from Onondaga County, and we got a real good rate on our rock salt. The city of Auburn refused to go in with that bid, and it's costing the city more money to desalt the roads. So that's another example of this administration spending money that they shouldn't be spending. All you got to do is work with other people to get a better deal. So I'm all in favor of de-icing the sidewalks.
Mr. Genatino, this issue of school safety and sidewalks.
Thank you. I believe that question came from a young man who was in the studio before we started.
He's most likely very happy right now.
I'm sure he is. And I'm happy because I like when young people are interested in politics, that come to you with a problem and are looking for a solution. I'd be happy to sit down and talk and see if there's some type of program that we could collectively work with the school district and the county to make public sidewalks, specifically around schools in the downtown area, safer. Absolutely.
Mr. Harding.
Oh, to build off the Bombardier question, wanted to ask about Micron. Micron plans to invest $100 billion over 20 years, and this is a huge win for Central New York. The city of Auburn stands to benefit from this project. If elected mayor, what will you do to help the city capitalize on Micron's investment?
Councilor, you'll have 2 minutes on this.
Thank you. We've already started that work. The minute the Micron announcement happened, Chairman Dave Gould of the Cuyahoga County Legislature, he formed 4 committees, one on housing, one on land use, one on energy, and one on workforce development. I happen to sit on the housing committee. Each committee is made up with major stakeholders throughout this community. We meet monthly. We have had very good, productive meetings with representatives from Micron. They have told us everything we're doing is gearing us up to benefit off of the investment that is happening in Onondaga County. Folks over in Onondaga County early on recognized that they could not absorb the full impact of Micron, and that neighboring counties are going to benefit from that. The good news here in Auburn is we have good infrastructure, water and sewer. That's what it's going to take for industry to come here. So I'm hoping that we can capitalize on that, especially with the Bombardier site being available. The other thing is housing. The Housing Commission has met repeatedly. The state is talking about doing a statewide housing study to see what types of housing are really needed, not only in our community and here in Auburn, but in Cuyahoga County as a whole. So hopefully that takes place here in the very near future. Again, I think we're poised to capitalize on the benefits of Micron. I'm hoping that CETA is still in existence so that they can assist us with that. We've been told by the representatives of Micron that the way their officials want to deal with municipalities is to go through the counties. So we really need to make sure that CETA is still around. And again, I'm just excited about the opportunity that's in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lattimore, this issue of Micron.
Well, Micron is good news. The problem is we're going to have probably less people wanting to come to here if the water quality keeps going down. School graduation is low. You know, the crime rate is up, and the taxes are up. Housing, I mean, I've watched from my office down on the West End on Delavan Street for 10 years a drug operation work. A lot of man-hour and women-hour police, ambulances over the years down at that drug house, and finally they closed it down after somebody got murdered. So we have to do a better job with policing, and we're going to have create a housing commission. Right now we got a backlog of codes of 5 years, and I don't want when a tenant says to a landlord or a slumlord that you know, we're gonna call up the city, and then all of a sudden that particular tenant is thrown out of their house because they opened up their mouth. So hopefully we can turn that housing around.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. Councilor, you'll have 1 minute on this.
Thank you. And I think part of the question was about, as mayor, how will you work, or how will we work to attract Micron? You know, the number one thing you can do as mayor is be an ambassador for the city of Auburn, to promote what's positive in this city, and there's a lot of positives, but also work to address what the serious challenges are. And again, every community has these challenges. We set ourselves apart by how we address them. Former Police Chief Sean Butler moved to North Carolina after he retired, and about 5 months in, he called me and he said, "Jimmy, everything that Auburn's doing to address the addiction crisis is light years ahead of what they're doing in Charlotte, North Carolina." So yes, there are serious challenges, but we will continue to address them in the manner we have. Thank you.
Mr. Harding.
did want to ask about CETA because this has been and for those at home, it's the Cayuga Economic Development Agency. They've played a big role in economic development projects here for the last decade or more. Their fate right now is uncertain. The county is deliberating now, talking about different funding strategies for that and maybe diverting that funding away. From the city's standpoint, what should the future of CETA look like? Because that agency has helped support many projects here, and including the Bombardier facility we just talked about a short time ago.
Okay, Mr. Lattimore, you're up first. You have 2 minutes on this issue of CETA funding.
Well, I've been on the county, and we started funding. The city didn't contribute anything. CETA, I don't know what the problem is, but they just fired 2 directors. Somebody's got to look at that as the internal workings of CETA. And I really haven't seen that much production. Now, I know my opponent's going to say, well, the milk plant, da-da-da-da-da, that was under somebody who's moved on to another. He's working in Syracuse now. So the talent down there, sometimes, I wonder, who's leading it. I took everybody up to probably the best economic developer in the state of New York, which is Steve Hyde in Batavia. I took the planning departments up there and said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All you got to do is copy the wheel that they got here. They've got industrial sites. They got cranes up. I mean, thank God the milk plant does have 1 crane up over there. In Batavia, they got 7 cranes up. So they got production. So hopefully we can come up with a mechanism that works, that actually brings in business. But we've spent a lot of money, and what I would have liked to have done with that money is maybe buy some land just north towards the thruway and put up another site. I mean, we need more industrial land. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. Councilor, on this issue of funding CETA.
Okay. So Cayuga Economic Development Agency, the concept makes sense. It did from day one. It is a one-stop shop for economic development. Falling under CETA were Cayuga County Cayuga County Industrial Development Authority and Auburn Industrial Development Authority. I happen to sit on Auburn Industrial Development Authority. I've had the good pleasure in the last 4 years of working with the staff at CETA. I can tell you that every single one of them are professionals. They care about this community. They work hard. They have the best interests of this community in mind. And they have had significant success. Cayuga Milk Ingredients, a massive expansion at Nucor Steel. They came to Ada and they needed assistance with that. We helped them with that. That massive expansion is going to keep them here for decades. The expansion of Tessie Plastics into Tech Park in Auburn during COVID. Courier Plastics has used CETA. So, I think that CETA has had a very good track record. Now, as far as the future goes, I'm hoping that after this election, when the Cayuga County Legislature has its new format, those legislators are seated, when the new city council is seated, that we can collectively work together and come up with a path forward to make sure that CETA continues to exist. As I said, in our meetings with Micron, they stress the point that they want to funnel all economic development through the counties. So it's going to be important that we have solid leadership, stable leadership at Cayuga Economic Development Agency if we're going to benefit off of the Micron opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute.
Well, my history with the county, I've got 12 years. I've got a lot of good friends on the county ledge. I hope they get reelected, and I look forward to working with the county. As we did when we went after Snyder General, we had people like Herbie Marshall and Mayor-elect Mr. Cosentino. We got on a plane and went down to Texas and brought back Snyder General, which is now Tessie. But I mean, I have a good relationship with the people in the county, and I hope that when I'm elected mayor, I can work very hard with them in order to put Auburn back on the map for the right reasons. We've got losing all the way around.
Mr. Genatino, 1 minute.
Again, I think that a mayor, a successful mayor, needs to be an ambassador for the city of Auburn. My opponent continually talks about how bad the city is. I don't even know why he wants to be mayor of the city if you listen to him. It breaks my heart to listen to him. I believe this community is a treasure. I chose to move back here. I've been here for 25 years. I chose to raise my children here. My children are successful because of this community. This community has made me who I am. So yeah, again, a mayor needs to be an ambassador for the city and sell it for the treasure that it is. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute.
I agree with my opponent, Mr. Genatino, in regards to Auburn could be a great productive. I've raised my 4 kids here, and they're successful somewhere else. We're going to make Auburn win again. My opponent wants to be in denial that things aren't right. I mean, just look around. I don't have to say anything. The downtown's empty. You got bad situations all the way around in the housing and stock. Open your eyes.
Mr. Genatino, you'll get 1 minute as well.
Great, thank you. My opponent said, I believe he said, Auburn could be great. I say Auburn is great. Again, do we have issues like every other community? 100%. But there are so many positives to living in this community, and it's those positives that will allow us to effectively address the things that we are facing. I can't get over his negative view of this city. It's just troubling to me. And I'll just say this, because of that attitude, I don't think Auburn can afford 4 more years that Tim Lattimore is mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Harding, I'm going to move on because I'm going to give Mr. Harding hopefully 2 bites of an apple. We'll see. Mr. Harding.
Auburn resumed its paid on-street parking program downtown after allowing 2 hours of free parking for the last couple of years. The Citizen talked to some business owners that are split on this. Some support the return of the paid parking program, while others oppose it. Wanted to ask the mayoral candidates here, where do you stand on this question?
Councilor, you're up. You have 2 minutes.
Sure, thank you. So where I stand on the issue is the decision that was made. Mr. Harding, you are correct. There were business owners on both sides of the fence. We initially waived charging for parking on the street during the COVID pandemic. That was done to help the businesses that we knew were going to suffer. And we funded that with American Rescue Plan money for 3 years. During that time, we started getting some negative feedback from some of the business owners in downtown Auburn. They wanted to bring back paid parking. So what we did is we sat down with them, we sat down with city staff, and we do what responsible, competent leaders do, and we came up with a compromise. And the compromise was this. We went back to paid parking on the street. We did not raise it. It's $1 an hour. We give 4 courtesy tickets a year. So 4 times a year, you can get an expired meter or not feed the meter, and you're not going to have to pay a fee. And we're keeping 2-hour free parking in the garage. Part of this decision came from police department and those that have to enforce it. It became troubling for them. A lot of the business owners downtown were parking out on the street all day long, and it was negatively impacting some of the other businesses. So again, we did what competent, responsible leaders do, and we compromised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Lattimore, on the issue of parking downtown.
Well, number one, the back-end parking is ridiculous. I went to driver's ed when I was learning how to drive, and we parallel parked. You have a parking garage. We're going to go back to parallel parking, and if we don't have enough room, people will park in the garage. I went downtown, took a couple friends, spent $100 at Parker's. I come out, I got a ticket on the window. My tires were touching the white line. I get another $15. So on top of spending $100 downtown for lunch, I get another $35 tickets. Ridiculous.
Mr. Genatino, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. I'd like to address the back-end parking. That was a state requirement. That is the truth. We had 2 options when the state of New York came in and said they were going to fund the reconstruction of Genesee Street. We could go to parallel parking or we could go to back-end parking. If we went to parallel parking, we would have lost just about half the spots on the street. A lot of the business owners were worried that would impact their business, so we went with back-end parking. It is a state requirement on state highways. All you have to do is Google, and you'll see that they have it in Watertown and in Syracuse. Again, it is a state requirement. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute.
Well, in order to get the loan or the grants or whatever, you might have had to start but you didn't have to start it in downtown. You could use it on side streets or some other place. So hopefully we will return to parallel parking as soon as I'm mayor. Day one.
Mr. Genatino.
All right, thank you. Again, it is a state highway. Initially, it had to do with the funding for that reconstruction project, but as a state highway, we cannot choose, other than back-in parking and parallel parking, what type of parking we have. And if Mr. Lattimore thinks that he's going to go to parallel parking, I would suggest that he reach out to the business owners down there, because the overwhelming response was they did not want parallel parking down there. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you'll have 1 minute.
Business owners, I see a lot of empty buildings downtown. Now, my opponent says I'm negative. I'm not negative. I'm just telling you the truth. Denial is the biggest problem that people have, whether it's drug addiction or whatever's going on with them. You first got to admit we got a problem. This gentleman doesn't want to say, under his administration, they failed.
Mr. Genatino, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. As I said, I moved back here 25 years ago after serving 5 years in the military. Shortly after moving back, Mr. Lattimore was the mayor. The joke was there were tumbleweeds in downtown Auburn. If you go in downtown Auburn now, there are restaurants, there's a nightlife, there is shopping, there's a bagel shop that's going to open up. Are there some empty buildings? Sure, there are. Businesses have suffered during the COVID pandemic, but there has been progress, and there will continue to be progress. Thank you.
Mr. Lattimore, you have the final minute.
Under my administration, we opened up State Street, we opened up Exchange Street, we put the pavers in, we put the acorn lights in. We made it look good, okay? We put in some underground wiring so there wasn't wiring. We improved the downtown so people would reinvest in it. That's why, and we had the housing authorities. We had Stryker, Boyle, Schwartz. Our senior citizens had decent housing. We put those anchors in there for a reason. And then we had Lattimore Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. We're now, Mr. Harding, unfortunately, you're not going to get to ask a final question. So I'm sure they'll stick around afterwards,
Yeah.
so you can do that. We're going to go to closing statements now. As we said, we were going to keep you to the time limit of 2 minutes to finish off closing statements. We're going to hear from Mr. Genatino first, who is a member of City Council currently. He is on the Democratic Working Families Party and the Independent Auburn line. Mr. Genatino.
Thank you. Thank you again for hosting today's debate. Thank you to Mr. Lattimore for his participation and to those at home watching. For the first time in 16 years, there will be a new mayor of Auburn. This is an important decision as it will directly impact the future of our city. Mike Quill reestablished a tradition of honor and integrity to the office of mayor. Due in large part to his leadership, the foundation of our house is once again strong. Collectively, we have made significant progress. There has been unprecedented public and private investment in Auburn over the past 8 to 10 years. Tens of millions of dollars in bridge and road construction, upgrades to our water and sewer infrastructure, significant investments in our park system, the implementation of the $10 million Downtown Revitalization Initiative, expansion of existing businesses and the emergence of new business, a thriving tourism industry, including the establishment of a national park and the construction of a visitor welcome center. The last time there was this much investment in Auburn was during urban renewal, and that is when they tore everything down. Because of this progress, we are well positioned to capitalize on the opportunities presented by the Micron project in neighboring Onondaga County. This strong foundation and stable leadership have also left us positioned to continue to address the challenges that Auburn is currently facing. We are no different than any other community in that we face the very serious issues of addiction, homelessness, and mental health, all made more challenging by the COVID pandemic. What has made us different from the rest of the country is how we have tackled these issues head on. These efforts will continue. Over the last hour, you have heard two very different visions for our city. One that realistically understands there are problems we face, but believes we can overcome these problems and is genuinely enthusiastic about the opportunities in front of us. The other that is overtly negative and believes Auburn's best days are in the past. There is one clear choice in this election, and that is to move forward. My pledge to you is that I will lead our city forward to address our challenges and embrace exciting new opportunities. I will continue to work tirelessly to make you proud as Auburn's next mayor, and I ask for your vote on Election Day, November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Genatino. We'll now hear from Tim Lattimore, who is on the Republican and Conservative lines. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the college. I was a graduate of this institution. One of the things I would want to say, I mean, my opponent says I'm negative. I've always said that this particular institution has a NASA platform Now, our senator just came out with a tech hub. It's going to be Rochester, Syracuse, and I want to start what is known as a diamond formation, where Clarkston in the north, which is a great institution, Rochester, Syracuse, Cornell, and Binghamton. That will form a learning tech center that's going to be important. And this institution, the one I graduated from, is underutilized in regards to the NASA platform. We should be utilizing that. I will do the best to make Auburn come back. You know that we lost Hunter's Diner and the Shines is looking bad. You know that I have my heart and soul into this. I love this town, and I'll make it better. I think I'm a better negotiator. I'm a better salesman. I will make Auburn perk again. I hope that our schools come back. Right now it's got low graduation rates. The crime rate's high. The taxes are up. The housing, we've got to put in a housing commission so that slumlords, don't get in. I mean, we put in senior citizen housing to be the anchors. I want to make sure that those senior citizens that are in that housing, that we have activities so that they can get out of their rooms and have a real serious interaction with the public. So hopefully you'll vote for me. We're going to have change, and I'm the change agent, so make it happen. Go vote.
Thank you, Mr. Lattimore. We want to thank both of you for taking the time over the last hour to let your views be known. We appreciate it, and we wish you well in the final 4 or 5 days of the campaign. We know that voters can go to the polls on November 7th, but they can also vote until Sunday for early voting, and we encourage them to do that. We also want to take a moment to thank Mr. Harding. Robert Harding has done yeoman's work here to ask questions, and we appreciate you participating in these last several forums and look forward to working with you in the future. We'd also want to thank all the students here. This program could not occur without the commitment of the staff and the students here at the college, and we want to thank them. They've made this a great experience this fall semester, so thank you. And finally, we want to thank you, the viewers who've tuned in to listen to both candidates over the last hour. We do encourage you to go out and vote, exercise your right to vote, whether it's in the city of Auburn or anywhere in our viewing area or online. A quick programming note or two. We'll return after next week. Sound Waves will be here next week, but we'll be back on November 14th with Inside Government and Beyond Front Page. Among our guests here will be Mayor Michael D. Quill, County Legislative Chairman David Gould, Auburn Superintendent of Schools Jeff Pirazzolla, and Assemblyman John Lamondes. I'm Guy Cosentino for Community College and the Citizen. We hope you have a good night, and remember to go vote. Thank you, gentlemen.